Epstein was connected to U.S. billionaires, the Clinton world, Wall Street, academia, the royal family, intelligence-linked individuals, political elites across continents. This is a global issue, not partisan.
You raised the question of Jeffrey Epstein in your remarks about in the Q&A.
Well, I think he's got a problem. I mean,
what do you think the problem will be?
I don't know, but that island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew.
This is the Publisher's Desk with Damon K. Jones, brought to you by Black Westchester Magazine.
Peace and blessings, everybody. This is Damon K. Jones here, and welcome to another show of the Publisher's Desk. And I am Black Westchester Publishers Damon K. Jones. And today we're talking about something that the mainstream media is terrified to touch. Because the question is simple. If the Epstein files are so important today, if Democrats suddenly want full transparency, then why didn't they release the files when Joe Biden was president? When the Democrats controlled everything? See, brothers and sisters, that's one question nobody in the media wants to ask. But right here on Black Westchester Magazine, we ask the questions that make people uncomfortable and make people put their thinking caps on. Like Thomas Sowell said, when you want to help people, you tell them the truth. When you want to help yourself, you tell them what you want them to hear. So let's tell the truth today, brothers and sisters. So let's start with the basics. From January 2021 to January 2023, Democrats controlled the White House, the Senate, the House, the Department of Justice, the FBI, Homeland Security, the intelligence agencies, every investigative committee, every subpoena power, every level of government that exposes wrongdoing. They had total control. So if the Democrats wanted Epstein file released, they had full authority to release them. They could have held hearings, pressured the DOJ, subpoenaed flight logs, released all non-classified files, compelled testimony, passed a transparency bill. But they didn't do any of that. Not one speech, not one vote, not one investigation. Nothing but silence. And now suddenly in 2025, the Epstein files are the most important thing in the world. So let's talk about it. Here's the part of the media is never repeats. Biden-owned Department of Justice shut down the Epstein co-conspirator investigation. They issued a memo saying there was no client list, no basis to charge anyone else, closed case. If Trump was the prize that they wanted, why wouldn't they close the investigation? Why would they close the investigation that would expose Trump? So what we need to do, as I said earlier, is put our thinking caps on and let's apply some logic. You don't bury evidence on your political enemy. You bury evidence that threatens your own people and your own party. And that's exactly what happened. This wasn't incompetence. This wasn't oversight. This was intentional political protection. Now let's go a step further. If the files could have hurt Trump, they would have released them in 2021. Democrats spent 8 years throwing everything but the kitchen sink to destroy Donald Trump. Russia, Ukraine, 2 impeachments, tax returns, January 6th committee, classified documents, federal indictments, state indictments, civil lawsuits, media leaks, whistleblowers. Now, if the Epstein files had anything that could bury him criminally, they would have released him immediately, midterms, before 2024, any chance they had. But the Democrats didn't do it because the evidence doesn't say what they want the public to believe. And here's the proof. Bradley Edwards said that Trump helped the victims. Bradley Edwards, the lawyer for Epstein's victims, the man who spent a decade uncovering Epstein's crimes, went on record and said this.
Is that he is the only person who, in 2009, when I served a lot of subpoenas, on a lot of people, or at least gave notice to some pretty connected people that I wanted to talk to them. He is the only person who picked up the phone and said, let's just talk. I'll give you as much time as you want. I'll tell you what you need to know, and was very helpful in the information that he gave, and gave no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything untoward whatsoever, but had good information that checked out and that helped us, and that we didn't have to take a deposition of him.
That was in 2009?
That was in 2009. I can tell you that I talked to President Trump back in 2009, and several times after that. He didn't think that it was a hoax then. In fact, he helped me. He got on the phone. He told me things that were helping our investigation. Now, our investigation wasn't looking into him.
Let me repeat. The only powerful person who helped the Epstein victim's lawyer was Donald Trump. Not the Clinton circle, not the billionaires, not the celebrities, not the academics, not the politicians, only Trump. I'm not saying it. The victim's lawyer said it, and you heard it yourself. So let's think logically. If Trump was the big target Democrats claim today, why didn't they release the files when the victim's lawyers said Trump helped the investigation? Because it didn't fit the narrative. Because the files expose other people, but not Trump. Now let's talk about who the other people may be. Alan Dershowitz, the lawyer for Epstein. He's a celebrity attorney. He's a Harvard professor. He's a civil liberties icon. And one of the Epstein closest associates and his attorney, Dershowitz denied every allegation. And that's his right. But the facts are the facts. He was Epstein's lawyer. He defended Epstein aggressively. He was deeply tied into Epstein's world. He fought to keep many documents sealed. He moved in elite Democratic and Republican fundraising circles. He had relationships with powerful universities and political institutions. And here's what matters most. Dershowitz consistently argued that releasing the files would violate privacy laws. But privacy laws for who? The victims or the elite? See, because if the files cleared him, he'll lead the transparency movement. Instead, he fought it for years. So again, the Democrats truly wanted the file released. Why didn't they release it under Biden when Dershowitz was still politically protected?
That's an excellent point.
A lot of people were affiliating with Epstein because of his charitable contributions and his academic work, but nobody, as far as I know, knew about this. Again, the same woman accused Al Gore of being on Epstein's island. We now have categorical evidence he wasn't. She also said that Bill Clinton was on the island having dinner with underage girls, and that he was flown there by Ghislaine Maxwell, who had just gotten a pilot's license, as if the Secret Service would ever allow a president or a former president.
But they could get him on the phone in a minute's notice. It's still pretty.
Now,
and then there's a lot of, Trump's on that list, and then there's a lot of, Clinton's on that list. If you were just to assign a number, like I said, Trump, 0 would be the lowest, and 10 would be a whole bunch of incriminating stuff on that list. And then I said Bill Clinton, 0 is nothing burger, and 10, obviously, a bunch of stuff. I say Trump, what number would you assign?
-3 in terms of criminality. I mean, he knew Epstein before anybody had any suspicions that Epstein did anything wrong. That I've read about in the records. On the Clinton thing, I actually had firsthand knowledge. I was having dinner with Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, and the Secret Service comes over to President Clinton and says, phone call, and the president walks away for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. We all thought it was national security. Comes back to the table and says, Alan, somebody wants to say hello to you. He hands me the phone. It was Jeffrey Epstein. So I have firsthand knowledge that President Clinton spoke to Jeffrey Epstein for 15 minutes. What did they talk about? I have no idea. What did he talk about with me? He asked me whether I was having a good time in the vineyard. So, there are many people who are on his plane. I was on his plane. Of course, I was his lawyer. And he would always send his plane for his lawyers. We had a special table on the plane. We would sit around and plan our legal strategy when we were...
Now let's step into the documents themselves, brothers and sisters. The emails were quietly released, and the ones people are still trying to push as their narrative is the emails in 2011. The email from Epstein to his associate Chris Lane Maxwell. Epstein wrote, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim spent hours at my house with him. He never once been mentioned." The victim in that message was redacted, yet the language is clear. And another email, the author, Michael Wolff, in 2019, he said Epstein stated, "Trump said he asked me to resign, never a member ever, and knew about the girls." This one takes things further, suggesting not just presence, but awareness. There are numerous correspondence in which Epstein mentions Trump. His movements, what newspapers covered him, and forward those items to his inner circle, remarking on Trump's behavior. Now, let's be clear. This is not a definite proof of a crime. They are what they are. Questions raised in writing by the man at the center of the scandal. Epstein claimed Trump spent hours at his house with a victim and that Trump knew about the girls. Now, is that criminal? No. But it looks suspect. I ain't gonna lie. If you're at the surface, if Democrats believe that this was their moment, if this was the ticking time bomb on Trump, so why did they sit on it for so long? Let's remember, it was Trump that said we have to release the Epstein files, along with the JFK files, and along with the files of Martin Luther King Jr. Suits the narrative. This segment of the leaked emails don't just expose one person, it exposes the system. It exposes the timing, it exposes power, and it exposes why the files are still locked down. Now check this out. Stacey Plaskett is a congresswoman, but she was caught texting Epstein. Now check this out. Stacey Plaskett is a congresswoman caught texting Epstein in the release files. And this is what I say. Be careful what you wish for, brothers and sisters. This is the bombshell that they're just little talking about it right now. So Stacey Plaskett is a Democrat from the U.S. Virgin Islands. She was
when they were
caught texting Jeffrey Epstein during a 2019 congressional hearing.
Email regarding Trump, where Jeffrey Epstein
and it was confirmed by her own office, CNN, the Washington Post, and 20,000 pages of newly released documents. With him
after they know he's
now,
been
during the Michael Cohen testimony against Trump, Epstein,
Matter of fact,
at that time
show you what
was a convicted sex offender, sat in his house watching the hearings on TV and texting Plaskett in real time. What did he tell her? Who, Rona, was Trump's assistant, Rona Graff. He told her what questions to ask Michael Cohen. He corrected her when she misunderstood in the text. And after she finished her questioning, he texted, "Good work." Now think about that. A sitting Congress member taking coaching questions by text from Jeffrey Epstein during an oversight hearing? And Democrats never said a word.
Is that accurate, yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Weisenberg and other individuals, Ms. Rona. Who are those individuals? Are they with the Trump organization?
They are.
Are there other people that we should be meeting with?
So Alan Weisselberg is the chief financial officer.
You got to quickly give us as many names as you can so we can get to them.
Yes, ma'am.
As Ms. Rona, what is Ms. Rona's position?
Rona Graff is Mr. Trump's executive assistant.
And would she be able to corroborate many of the statements that you've made here?
Yes, her office is directly next to his, and she's involved in a lot that went on.
You're not going to hear an investigation from the Democrats. You're not going to hear an ethics review from the Democrats. Are you going to hear any transparency from the Democrats? See, if Democrats really wanted Epstein exposed, why didn't they lead with this?
Texted Democratic Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett during your House Oversight Committee hearing in early 2019. Her staff confirmed that and went on to say that, as a former prosecutor, she welcomes information that helps her get at the truth and took on the GOP that was trying to bury the truth. Why do you think Epstein would have been so invested? Well, let me ask you mine. Why do you think Epstein? Wait, hold on. Answer mine first. Why do you think Epstein was so invested?
Yeah, he wanted to get at Trump. There's no doubt he had real animus towards him. Because Donald Trump allegedly stole the property, the one that was ultimately sold for $95 million that Jeffrey Epstein wanted to buy on South Ocean there in Palm Beach, Florida. But the real question I think that is being missed here, and one I would love for Stacey Plaskett to give me a call and explain. Why don't you explain to me why you're texting with Jeffrey Epstein anyway? In fact, Jeffrey Epstein at that time had already been charged as being a pedophile, as running a sex trafficking ring, and you're in the process of texting with him during my live House Oversight Committee hearing. Why she is in communication as a woman, forgetting about even as a member of Congress, we see there's a whole bunch of perverts there too. But as a woman, knowing that this guy was the worst sex trafficker of underage girls, of children, you're texting with the leader of this when he's already been charged and awaiting an indictment. Shame on Stacey Plaskett, by the way. She owes an explanation, and not the BS explanation that her office and her staff gave.
Well, I invite her to explain. I'll also say, as a woman and former prosecutor myself, sometimes the journey to the truth requires you to walk through the depths of hell, and you meet devils along the way. Michael Cohen, thank you so much for joining.
And I also really want to say for Laura Coates, like that response was, it just didn't make any sense. She's an elected official taking questions from a charged pedophile in a congressional hearing. That has nothing to do with being a prosecutor. You're not. This is not the DA's office. It's the halls of Congress. She's literally texting, communicating. So should she be put up? Should her name be on the Epstein list? Nobody's this is ridiculous, and nobody's going to challenge her in the press. And Laura Coates just proved the press ain't even going to challenge her. They're going to make excuses while she's texting a pedophile in a congressional hearing. We have literally lost our mind in the media. And once again, the Biden administration had it for over 4 years. See, because exposing this incident would damage the Democrats' position that Trump is tied to some criminality to Epstein. And that brings us to the global angle, the intelligence angle. Now, this part, we know the media is not touching, other than certain people in the independent media atmosphere. See, the question is, was Epstein officially Mossad?
To answer any question about why they were doing what they were doing, because it was just too insulting. And every single time I would just feel like raising the middle finger and screaming obscenities, which is not an adult response, I'll concede, but that's how I felt. And I think that's really at the heart of why the Epstein thing is so distressing. I mean, the guy was some weird sex freak who was abusing girls. We knew that. But the fact that the US government, the one that I voted for, refused to take my question seriously and instead said, case closed, shut up, conspiracy theorist, was too much for me. And I don't think the rest of us should be satisfied with that. And by the way, let me just say really quickly, because I was so mad about it that I think I found out part of what's going on. I think we are going to find out more. And I think the truth, for whatever it's worth, in case you're interested, is that the DOJ didn't release lots of incriminating sex videos with Epstein and his billionaire pals because they don't have them. They don't have them because when the original search warrant was served 2007, I think, possibly 2006, I think 7, it was basically designed to protect Epstein. The search warrant was written in such a way to make sure that the feds never got their hands on the actually incriminating evidence. It's another way of saying the cover-up has been going on since 2007, almost 20 years. And so the real question is not, was Jeffrey Epstein a weirdo who was abusing girls? Yes, we can answer that. The real question is, why was he doing this, on whose behalf, and where did the money come from? And those are the questions that need to be answered.
What do you think happened? What do you think is the reason for this?
Unfortunately, it has all come down to the Epstein files, and that is shocking. And, you know, I stand with these women. I stand with rape victims. I stand with children who are in terrible sex abuse situations, and I stand with survivors of trafficking and those that are trapped in sex trafficking. And I will not apologize for that. I believe the country deserves transparency in these files, and I don't believe that rich, powerful people should be protected if they have done anything wrong. And so I'm standing with the women, and I will continue to do my small part to get the file.
Was officially working with the Israeli government. See, there's no public document proving it. So we have to stay factual. Epstein funneled money through intelligent elites networks, banks, foundations, academia. These networks intersected with Netanyahu's political fear. Not a personal friendship, but overlapping donors, overlapping elites, overlapping interests. This isn't about Israel itself. This is about global power and influence.
And now questions are arising whether Bill Gates' contact with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein may have played a role. The Wall Street Journal reporting that Melinda Gates was concerned over her husband's relationship with Epstein going back many years. Melinda Gates made her concerns known to her husband, according to the Journal's Emily Glazer.
She expressed her frustration to Bill Gates and really didn't feel comfortable with the relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, especially since Melinda Gates is a global advocate for women and girls. And it was already known that Jeffrey Epstein, had his issues. And that dismay was expressed, but Bill Gates continued meeting and having ties to Jeffrey Epstein.
In fact, according to the New York Times, beginning in 2011, Gates met with Epstein on numerous occasions.
See, because Epstein was connected to U.S. billionaires, the Clinton world, Wall Street, academia, the royal family, intelligence-linked individuals, political elites across continents. This is a global issue, not partisan.
You raised the question of Jeffrey Epstein in your remarks about in the Q&A.
Well, I think he's got a problem. I mean,
what do you think the problem will be?
I don't know, but that island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it. The island was an absolute cesspool. So,
the Clintons are friends
and he's
of
been
yours,
there
right?
for many times.
The Clintons are friends
Well,
of
I
yours.
can't say friends, but I know
You're friendly. You know them.
They play at my clubs a lot. I have clubs, and everybody likes to play at my clubs.
Are you saying there's a political problem for her if she runs for president?
It could be a political problem. Look, he could be a political problem. Right now, he's Teflon, and right now, maybe not. But he could end up being a political problem.
That's one question.
And what this is a global scandal that got sealed because they threatened the global structure. That's why Biden stayed quiet. That's why the Democrats stayed quiet for 4 years. That's why the DOJ shut down the case. That's why everybody is playing dumb now and they're saying, release the files, release the files. That's political grandstanding. Because if they wanted to release the files, both parties would have released them by now. See, the files didn't come up again is when Trump opened up his mouth, said he was going to release them. When Kash Patel was on different podcasts talking about we have to know who the pedophiles are. That's Kash Patel. And this is Dan Bongino, the current deputy director of the FBI. And this is what he said about the Epstein case before Trump won.
Well, the short story, but not who they are, says, Epstein's an intelligence asset for people in the Middle East, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like, you sure of that? He's either a witting or unwitting asset, intelligence asset, meaning his plane and that island, the cameras, there's a big assumption out there that these videotapes were exclusively in the custody of Epstein. That's a huge mistake. The reason they wanted this story to go away is because there's an assumption like, oh yeah, Epstein had him. No, he wasn't the only one who had him, according to this source. These assets, that's why this blackmail story makes so much sense. Which Middle Eastern countries they are, I don't know. But this person, who is a very, very good reporter, I mean, aces, right, swore Epstein was either a witting or unwitting intelligence asset, and they may have had his plane wired up, and they're the ones who have all this stuff. So the point is, to sum it up, how do you know some of these countries aren't going to some of these power players who aren't making decisions because, hey, you wouldn't want this video out there, right? How do you know?
See, if the Epstein files really hurt Trump, Democrats would have released them in 2021. But they didn't. Because the files won't damage Trump as maybe other important people. And the files will implement other people. It might expose donors, lawyers, academics, global elites. And it might expose international intelligence network. Biden's DOJ intentionally closed the door. See, because transparency was never the goal. But everything is happening now is a political cleanup. It's not justice for the victims. They really wanted justice for the victims. This would have been done 4 years ago. So next time you hear release the Epstein files, ask yourself, where was that energy in the Biden administration? Where was that urgency in 2021? Where was the moral outrage in 2022? Where was the accountability when Congresswoman was texting Epstein live on camera during a hearing? Where is the transparency for that? Dershowitz fought to keep the documents closed, but now he's saying release them all because it has become a circus. Where was the Justice Department for the victims? From 2021 to 2024, where were they? This is Damon Jones. And please leave a comment, like, or share. Do you think that more people are going to get exposed? I'm going to tell you what I really believe. And this is my opinion. I don't have any facts on it. But I really think Trump snitched on Epstein because they had the falling out over the real estate.
You raised the question of Jeffrey Epstein in your remarks about in the Q&A.
Well, I think he's got a problem. I mean,
what do you think the problem will be?
I don't know, but that island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it. The island was an absolute cesspool.
And I think somehow he knew. He worked with the victim's lawyer. They were worried about him barking. When a dog barks, he makes noise. And I believe, like I said, it's not factual, just my opinion. Trump helped get that man arrested the first time. Then he cut ties. All ties were cut. But we don't know. But we might find out. So stay informed, brothers and sisters. Stay sharp. And don't follow the politics. Follow the truth. Again, this is Damon K. Jones, and I'm the publisher of Black Westchester magazine, blackwestchester.com. Please go to the website, read some articles. Please, you can support by donating. You could buy some of our merch. We're just trying to give you independent news with the Black point of view. And as always, stay safe, stay blessed, and stay blacktastic. Peace out.
Tired of the same emotional politics that lead nowhere. Emotional Politics, Logical Failure by Damon K. Jones is the book Black America needs right now. It exposes the lies, challenges the gatekeepers, and calls for real strategy, not just symbolism. Power starts with truth. On sale, now, and available in audiobook on Amazon.
Tolerance is for Cowards by Damon K. Jones. This book is not anti-police, it's pro-community. Discover how the extended policing strategy empowers you to demand real public safety, justice, and accountability from your local police department. Because the Black community deserves good policing. On sale now on Amazon and Audible. Discover Jesus and Divine Black Masculinity by Damon K. Jones. This a bold blueprint to restore faith, manhood, and purpose in Black America. Because the Black community needs good Black men. Available now on Amazon. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like and share it with others who need to hear the truth. And for exclusive content and behind-the-scenes access, join the Black Westchester Magazine YouTube membership club today. Your support helps us keep independent Black media strong. Support independent Black media with style. Rock Black Westchester merch and represent the news with the Black point of view. Every purchase helps us speak truth to power.
This is the Publisher's Desk with Damon K. Jones, brought to you by Black Westchester Magazine, where life, culture, community, and faith meet truth, power, and purpose.